Cybersecurity and AI, what's the point?
So if I kick off with this topic, so cybersecurity it's a huge topic right now, and on both, or from different angles. I think there's a lot of discussion about how AI can be used on the attacking side. So there are a lot of people concerned about how it can be used to optimize attacks, change tactics, use data in new ways, but also on the defending side, how to mitigate attacks and do threat modeling. Some interesting use cases there.
What? May I ask, attack what?
Well, any system that's online, any piece of critical infrastructure that Abhishek is involved in, and the vital systems that are out there, both for aviation and other travel tech businesses.
That could be, for instance, airports, air traffic management.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
We had the recent news of some systems going down in some European airports. Heathrow was affected,
Right.
as well as Brussels and a few others. And in the UK, one of our biggest car manufacturers and their factory, their production line has been shut down for multiple weeks. And it was reported, I think yesterday, that's cost the business and its supply chain at least £2 billion. So nearly 3 billion with a B, US dollars. So it's a major, major issue.
And you would say that this is somehow related to the developments that we see in artificial intelligence or AI?
It could be. I'd be very surprised if it wasn't. I think many professionals in knowledge worker jobs and others are using AI, and I'd be very surprised if the technical people involved on the bad side of cyber, the bad actors, weren't using it as well. I think, I'd be very surprised.
I think, and your reference to the use of AI, I mean, so I work in travel tech. So, we build software, and, the current trend around AI and software development and code security has been one of the hot topics in the last couple of months. In a way, we have AI coding tools which promise productivity. You have GitHub, Copilot, ChatGPT, Claude Code. They've created this new wave of vulnerabilities in production systems, because there's this rapid but risky development that happens. You have AI-generated code which speeds up launches, then often lacks input validation or error handling and proper authentication methods. So we don't have best practices that are followed around vibe coding. You don't have the level of expertise needed. Anyone can become a vibe coder today.
Could you maybe explain what vibe coding is? Not everyone knows it. For instance, I'm not 100% sure I fully understand what it means.
It's basically a tool where you put in a prompt that you want to build a productivity tool. So it could be as simple as building a calculator or a chess game. So you just create a simple prompt saying that build a chess game, and you can be a bit more creative, saying, okay, have probably theme it around Game of Thrones, and you actually have a new chess game created. You don't need to get into the code. You don't have to build code. You don't have to have knowledge of coding. A marketer can become a coder. Anyone can do coding today, and that's where the risk is, because if you don't have experienced developers working on vibe coding, they cannot. They may not use the right prompts to ensure it's secure. And that's
okay. So what you are saying is there are prompts that you could use in order to make it secure, because that's what I thought. Because prompt design is so important, I would say is, at least to me, with my limited exposure to all this, but I would say really coming up with the right prompts. And then I was also wondering when you said, there are this problem, critical issues with the codes. Could you just say, check whether there is any critical issue with the code, and then you could trust that it solves this?
I mean, The thing is, I think what's required is to educate developers who use vibe coding to prompt with, security constraints, not just, having functionality goals. I think that's where we'll need to make those changes. So as long as you are well educated in the security frameworks, you have the relevant teams involved. I think it's more to do with prompt design, as you said, and the best practices when to ensure that you don't have those leakages when you do develop, and ensure that you combine the security ops teams as part of your pipelines, to ensure that there is no model oversight. You can catch hidden exploits which might have been generated through autonomous coding. But then again, it requires a level of expertise and a bit of education as well.
So would you say that overall this stuff, because what we think is that with AI, people will become more productive. But on the other hand, what you are saying, in order to make it safe, we need to have a bigger security team, and then at the end, would you say that overall how does it affect the staff count, let's say, at companies? How many more people do you need in order to operate something like this safe? Do you have any idea about that?
Well,
it's a difficult question, I would say.
It's a difficult one, but it's tech. I'm not saying that you need dedicated. Of course, every organization, they have their own security CISO teams who manage and put best practices. It's just about educating developers around security. So you need to at least build those best practices. Especially around prompt design. So when you do prompt, okay, what are the checks that you need to make? How do you what is the prompt blueprint? What are the best practices? I think those aspects need to be a focus, I think, in terms of education. But I don't see that as an impact in resources. You still can do it in limited resources. I mean, that's the entire point. But the best practices aspect is quite critical.
Yeah, I think what I'd add to that is a good engineer is still a good engineer. And what I mean by that is a senior or a good engineer will know what questions to ask as part of that vibe coding. So they would know to ask, how are we managing the secrets on the server side, or are we putting an API key on the client side? And 100 other things that they have learned through painful experience and training and through building these systems. When they're vibe coding, their prompt will be very different. They'll be making sure that it's using certain packages and the real ones, not the potential packages that can be, because that's another attack vector, is a fake library that can be automatically pulled into a project. So I think as well as sort of working with other teams, a vibe coding is incredibly powerful, but can be secure if you know how to ask the right questions of what you're building. Some of the platforms have improved that. So Lovable, maybe you guys played with Lovable a little bit. It is a lot of fun to build an app very quickly. You should do, yeah, man, yeah, absolutely. But what that does, they've part of their product offering, and others are available for sure. Something they have done, which I thought was interesting for this conversation, was that they have an automatic security scanner as part of the product. So before you deploy it, you can click the button and it will scan your code and look for some of these issues for you.
And what's interesting, I think it's called embedded AI assisted vulnerability scanning or something, I think, as a feature, where they have these models which are trained in the dark web trained models for code verification. And it does a brilliant job to assess or perform a security assessment before deployment.
What I was wondering is, because you said that a good engineer will also be able to handle the system well, or this technology well, because he's just a good engineer. But I think one of the features of these technologies is that not so good engineers can do quite decent work with it. So what it enables is the less good engineers to become just good enough so that they can do something, and then I think this broadens the range of engineers that you will be having, and then also maybe some risk for security. But then what you are saying is there are certain tools that you can use in order to check how common are they. You mentioned this lovable. How common is this, and is this just a start, or is this something that we can expect to be broadly used in the future, and therefore we don't need to worry about all these issues that we've just discussed?
But I think Replit does a very similar thing, which is another vibe coding platform that's very popular. But there are also tools they're all competing with each other. So Microsoft with GitHub Copilot, they built in a security scanner to scan your code. And there are companies out there, little startups, who just focus on cybersecurity, and they will come and scan your code for you. And it's a really interesting area that's sort of developing. But I think what we shouldn't do is scare off people who are not engineers from vibe coding, because I think it very much depends on the purpose and the use case. If you are a product manager or product owner, and you just want to get an idea in front of the VP product and pitch something, then having a little UI that's just no customer data, no real data, but just completely synthetic to get a point across or an idea, but then I think it's extremely powerful. And actually, before vibe coding, though, I know in the businesses I've worked in, people would be queuing up to get some developer time to help them build a wireframe or prototype.
Yeah. In fact,
how common is this? How it seems really like when I think I have never done this, and I really hardly heard about this. I listened to the podcast from Abhishek a while ago, and since then I think not really. But is it? Am I really missing something? Actually, this is one of the reasons for having this kind of discussions, because I'm afraid that I will kind of lose the kind of miss important developments that others will just take, and I will be left behind. And maybe for some of the people that will be watching this video, they will have a similar feeling. So vibe coding, how common is it? How many people is it so common in right now?
Yeah, I mean, the uptake is just I think it's significant. I mean, a lot of organizations have already started adopting it. They're quite open about the use of vibe coding because it also reduces investments overall and improves agility. I think like for instance, I've been using Windsurf and Cursor, and in the last, I think for the last 6-7 months now, and
you too, Alex, did you also use those?
I've been using Claude Code as my main daily driver. I've not used Windsurf. I tried Cursor, but I didn't like where some of those prompts were going with all the code. So I switched to Claude Code for now. Yeah.
And how about you, Abhishek? Do you use Claude Code?
I use Claude Code, and I've used Claude Code as well. I like Cursor. I prefer Cursor at the moment. But again, it all depends upon your use. Lovable is nice. It's exciting. I think, as Alex said, I think you should start with Lovable, to be honest. And
Can you give an example? Can you give an example of what you did with this? I think that would be really nice. And maybe even an aviation application. Maybe you have used it in the context of aviation even. I mean, that would be really interesting.
I mean, we already started doing that quite a bit. In fact, you mentioned Alex mentioned about how we move from ideation to product readiness. Now, product managers initially, I mean, we as part of the product lifecycle, we go through building those demonstrators either through PowerPoints or click-through versions on Figma, or try to get some R&D capacity or engineering capacity to build the first prototype with mocked-up data. Now, all that can be done in a few hours, and you just go with basic concept, as Alex said, present it to the management, get a buy-in from the customer. So you speed up the product lifecycle process, and you say, okay, fine, you have a customer backing, you have a clear justification for further investments, and then and then you can take this application to your engineers and say, okay, fine, this is your vision. Now make it production ready. Simple. I mean, it's that
interesting.
easy in terms of how you can accelerate the entire product lifecycle process. That has changed, and I think larger organizations need to. I think what they will struggle is the mindset and cultural change, because now you have democratized the process. So you're now not competing with bigger vendors. You're competing with startups. You're competing with so that's the change in dynamics overall.
Yeah, I think maybe I'd love to hear more about your process, Abhishek. I think there's the opportunity there. It was always a challenge through my career, handing things over from one team to another, or from one, perhaps an R&D or innovation team into a production squad. I think having a vibe-coded prototype where you can use AI to explain the code to you as well, and not just perhaps a written document or even a set of well-organized wiki pages, it still doesn't get the point across. I think there's a good opportunity for that handover to be a lot better now.
In fact, you have some handover tools on GitHub available today that you can use and add it to your toolkit. So that gives you a complete and you have these tools based on the different personas, from a product owner, business analyst, to the front end or back end developers to work on. So you already have those tools today available in GitHub, which we are exploring, try to leverage. And in terms of adoption, I think if you look at the recent stats, I think I had gone to one of the conferences organized by Databricks around AI, and one of the insights was that around 41% of all new code generated or written globally in 24 last year was AI generated. So imagine, this year I think it was close to around 65% already. So you have around, I think, close to over 70 tech startups, pipe coding. You have digital agencies doing it today, and I think nearly half of the non-tech founders, they now use AI tools to create MVPs or the minimum viable product. So
when we talk about product, when you talk about products, you talk about apps, I guess, or you don't talk about something physical to touch, but rather a set of codes that are, creating a certain service, software products, right? That's basically what you're talking about. Yeah. Because when I think about products, I think about something that you can touch, but that's not what you had in mind. So you really had a developing a software, and then you go from one team to the other, and then with the vibe coding, what you can basically do is you can create sort of some model, something that illustrates what you want to do or what they should be doing, and then they will perfect it in a sense. Is my understanding correct?
Let's say, I work in travel tech, right? So you talk about a check-in application or a booking website. You can vibe code a booking website in less than an hour. So that's the prototype that you create. You don't have to have your engineering resource.
But then you cannot just take it. There's still something that needs to be finished somehow. It's just the start, but it makes the start very simple. This is how I understand it. Is that correct?
Indeed, yeah. Of course, you have other complexities. It's a booking website is, or as simple as productivity apps. For your personal use, if you want to create a finance app or tracking your stocks. Like you have investments, you want to create a calculator to assess when is the best time to buy. When you put a stop gap, you can just vibe code that app, and you can put in your assets or track these assets. You have some open APIs provided by your different providers like Bloomberg, and you have Perplexity having a fintech API catalog that you could consume.
Interesting.
So you could build your own products using web coding.
Wow, that's amazing. And how common is it? Okay, so now we talked about in general about the cybersecurity, about wipe coding, and how it makes it easier, so to say, more efficient to organize the whole process of software development. Now, how to what extent do aviation companies making use of this, or am I too fast? Is there still something that should be said here, or is it okay if we try to think about aviation applications? I mean, Abhishek, you already mentioned this like check-in potential, like software, or but yeah, what do you think?
I know, Alex, you want to give your thoughts on that? I can probably have a few as well.
Sure. So, I mean, I think it's being adopted. It's a slower pace than the sort of solopreneur, perhaps. So somebody outside the corporate environment, when you're in that corporate environment, tools have to be approved. And there are much more sort of strict rules around cybersecurity for good reason. But what I've seen in the conversations I've had, I think the Aviation Festival was a couple of weeks ago, and I last spoke to sort of quite a few aviation stakeholders, and that they are trialing out these tools. They're working with them, they're exploring, and I think creating sort of sandboxes, so secure sandboxes within which they can create prototypes and play with synthetic data, or perhaps data that's been cleaned and is very low risk, to allow the productivity gains that they can see. So I think the adoption's there. There's a lag. It's just a lag factor.
But I mean, one of the reasons there is a lag is that aviation has very special safety requirements, right? I mean, it's just to be extra secure, extra safe in order, to avoid any accidents. So is this something that slows the companies down somehow, or are there other reasons?
I mean, there are very well documented standards for how to write safety critical software. There are different categories, how you fit into the safety management system of the customer in terms of what you're building. And so that part of the process, I think, there's a lot of opportunity for innovation, but that will come a little bit slower because of the validation, verification sort of processes that need to be followed. But I think in that initial phase, that innovation side of ideas, user interfaces, a different user experience, I think there's still big opportunity to use a lot of these tools. And I think the way I think about it is that closest to the consumer, so the travel tech, the travel companies, the closer they are to the consumer, the quicker the innovation runs for this kind of thing.
And closer to the consumer means having more data, more detailed data about the customer behavior, consumer behavior.
It means it's not safety critical.
Okay.
It means the stakes are lower, and compared to anything related to air traffic control or flow management or anything around there, airports, it's very, very different. So I think if you first step into a business context and not safety critical, so we're in a business context.
Okay.
And so we're lowering the stakes, we're lowering the risk. And I think the lower the risk, the easier it is for teams to pick up some of these tools and get more confident with them.
And this is not different from other industries then, right? That's basically, I think this is true for aviation, but this is also true for other industries. So that are not, wherever there is these safety critical issues play less of a role, then of course the adoption will be faster. You can be more creative. You can try out things, and then you can push basically all these developments without needing to worry about other things which would slow you down, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I still, of the very firm opinion, do not put a large language model near any safety critical environment whatsoever. Just don't do it. And then even for writing documentation
Would you
a
agree,
safety case.
Abhishek, with this
I wouldn't do that either.
assessment? Sorry, Alex. I was just wondering because you said that was very clear, right? Don't put anything of these, any of those large language models close to something that is critical for safety. Would you agree, Abhishek?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. But there's a caveat to that as well. I think we need to build those guardrails. I think it's more on the maturity at this stage. Now, if you talk about, let's say, disruption management within the aviation space, like it is mission critical, but I think using machine learning and, using large language models for querying and creating agents for decision making, it adds a lot of value. But then we talk about flight safety, flight risk.
Can I just to clarify, disruption, you mean, for instance, there are weather conditions and then the schedule gets messed up and then you need to somehow manage the situation, and then you would say using AI tools, machine learning in order to get back on back on track would be something you would say is a good idea.
Exactly. What is the probability of disruption? What are your impacted roads? What are the focus flights? How do you recover your passengers? Where do you divert? Today, it's they use multiple products. They have data assets lying in multiple places. AI can make a lot of improvements there in that space. So that's where we see a lot of value. But I think where Alex was mentioning was more on flight safety and security. I think we need to probably go in line with the regulation. We don't have the level of maturity, so it has to be assessed. With all the
for me, it is not so obvious how large language models could even contribute. What could be their contribution? Let's assume that they would be safe. How could you use them in order to improve your operations, the safety critical operations, in a sense? Let's assume they are safe. What are the areas in which you would apply them? Or speaking or putting it differently, which are the areas that you would not want it to be involved in? You say safety critical issues, but or areas, but what are those areas that you would think are should not be applied, even though potentially, if they would be safe, they could improve effectiveness or efficiency, or could really contribute to improving aviation?
I think, from my point of view, even for safety critical aspects, I think what I would go for a human assisted flow, where you could have recommendations and then you have a human expert taking the decision, because and that reduces the liability on the provider. At the same time, it ensures safety and security, because you have that expertise. You're not automating those aspects, which can have a domino impact on safety. For instance, I would say from flight safety, you can talk about weight and balance of an aircraft. When you anything in the cargo hold, you do place your cargo and luggage within the cargo hold. In order to place them evenly, you've got to manage the center of gravity of the aircraft to ensure that the aircraft takes off safely without having the tail tip at the runway. So we have a lot of engineering and flight data that we work with, and the automation around ensuring, okay, this particular box has to go to this section of the aircraft cargo hold is something that the system recommends. And then you have the load controller who controls, who then verifies and checks. And so we don't want to automate it. I think automation we're not there yet. We need to ensure that it's we have the relevant guardrails. And in flight safety in general, I think human assisted AI is going to be the way forward. You're not going to have anything automated in that space, at least from a regulation point of view.
I think AI, yes, overall, yes. In particular, things like machine learning and even something that was, the result of reinforcement learning. I think my issue is with large language models specifically making decisions. I think that's the area of risk. Is all my testing with the benchmark, the aviation benchmark I've been working on, the LLMs don't understand. They're not world simulators, so they don't understand timing windows, physical interactions. They don't actually understand it. That they do very clever things in terms of in-context learning, but if they haven't seen a scenario before in their training data, they won't come up with they'll come up with a plausible answer, which may be totally incorrect, which is even worse than saying, I don't know. So I think my comment around don't go near safety critical is specifically for large language models and sort of non-deterministic nature. And they do not handle novel questions they've never seen before well at all.
Can
Even coding.
you give some examples for these decisions? Because you said decision making. What would be examples for such decisions?
I think one could be one of the questions in the benchmark we've been looking at is around arrival sequence. So lots of flights inbound to an airport from all over the place, different parts of the world, with updated times on their progress based on the weather and other factors. That the sequence of arrivals coming into a runway can change. And those people maybe they would go front or behind, depending on if they were delayed in the air or took a longer route than was expected. So you could imagine that's actually quite a deterministic type. You can model that out, and there are products out there, arrival managers.
That would be machine learning, right? I think isn't that the category, machine learning category?
Well, that's what you're saying there. That's a decision. So do you use machine learning? Do you design an algorithm yourself that's your own IP and then sell a product or a system? Or do you just give all the data to a large language model and ask it what's the sequence?
I see.
It could probably create a nice JSON structured sequence from that input, right? But would you trust it? I certainly wouldn't. So that's sort of what I'm guessing at. Is that's a sequencing decision that you're asking the LLM to do, and it gives a plausible answer, but it's not to be trusted at this stage of the technology. You would use a different tool for that problem.
Are there some areas where you would think, or maybe even related to aviation, where you would think it's not yet there, but we are close? Here with sequencing arrival flights, apparently I hear that you would say not even close. But maybe the world is not black and white. Maybe there are certain areas where certain decisions, they're not yet so good, but pretty close. And maybe next year that could be not just assisted, right? So you have some, I don't know. Another thing was when you talked about this, Abhishek, I was thinking about pilots and getting tired, for instance, right? And then you get a note that they maybe look at your eye movements or whatever, and then they can read that, now you behave like a tired person. So you're tired, so you should be doing something, right? There's also, I think, this kind of assistance tools in a sense. But now I think this is a very interesting distinction between assistance and decisions. And Alex, what you just described is a situation where we would say, those arrival, the air traffic controller kind of decisions, no, they are not. They're far from being able to do something like that. But maybe, I'm just wondering, is there some area where you would think, the decisions are getting much better? I think there's, maybe I just
I think especially around resource utilization in airports, for instance, that's where we are seeing a lot of improvements. Automating, assessing the passenger flows in airports. How do you optimize your counters, kiosks, backdrops based on peak times and predictions? You could get assets from ground access, assessing, if there's a freeway to the airport which is blocked, so there's going to be a delayed peak time, and then you prepare your resources accordingly. Is there going to be a bottleneck at security which might have a delayed boarding processing time, which may have an impact on your OTP? So proactively managing your OTP. Those are the areas where we see tangible
And
benefits.
here you would say, okay, they're not just helping, but it's an area where you would not rule out, maybe that's happening already, or you would not rule out that in the not too far future, these tools would really make decisions that then would be followed.
And this is something that's coming in. I mean, some airports do it today, and we'll see this in the next 12 months. I would say, where you'll find automations and resource utilization and allocations. You could set certain thresholds saying that if the peak period extends by 15 minutes, activate 2 kiosks or backdrops at the airport to improve the flows. We have something called the happy flows and not so happy flows in airports, where you use biometrics end to end. If there's a bottleneck at security, how do you increase the lanes? And you should be aware that all these touch points, also the different vendors, different departments, there are a lot of silos. So getting the data together and then stitching it end to end, providing those insights will really improve processing times and utilization. And we also see this so everything from customer or passenger experience to resource optimization and cost optimization is where we see a lot of value.
I totally agree with that. I think it is hugely exciting for aviation. There are lots of use cases where it can be hugely beneficial. I mean, the customer experience side, yet to see a chatbot as good as ChatGPT or Claude on an airline app or website. But I'm looking forward to seeing that, because a truly interactive conversation about a problem I have or how I'd like to travel and the different options, and then being upsold things that I really...
Okay, they're not yet so good. So you would say that they are. I rarely use them, but from what I hear from you is, you would say from your experience, you would say they're not. How close are they? How close are they? 80%, 50%? Is there any? Can you maybe sort of try quantify?
Maybe 40% of the
Only
the ones
40%.
I used. I wouldn't name them on this conversation, but the ones I've used are a long way away from being as richly interactive as ChatGPT and Claude and Perplexity. I mean, I'm looking forward to them being that good, because I will happily, please try and sell me an upgrade or sell me something that lines up perfectly with my preference. I'm totally up for that, because the current experience, I've literally, and I'd love to know both of you if you've ever done this, I have never, ever booked a hotel or hire car as part of my ticket purchase flow. So once I bought the flight, I've literally never done it, because I think I'd go somewhere else. But if it was a bargain, I totally would.
But that's, but you know what? You see this today, as you said clearly. I booked through Perplexity, and they have their browser Comet. I don't know if you used Comet Assist. I wanted to book a ticket to India, and I was looking at some options in some destinations. And what was interesting is I put the same prompt in Perplexity, in Llama, and Claude, and you have entirely different results. And this is where you talk about, you're moving away from search engine optimization to what they call today as GEO, which is the generative engine optimization, where these different LLMs, they provide different levels of outcomes. You have Perplexity, which focuses more on flexibility and localization. You have Llama, which focuses on brand offers that the competitors also offer, for instance. So the question is, how do you? What's interesting is how are other providers like Expedia and others, how they're going to make themselves generative engine optimized across these LLMs? That's another area so I got really different outcomes. Now, if you want to book a ticket to Orlando from London and you want to book a Disney pass, you put the same prompt in two different LLMs. In Perplexity, it gives you a different offer. It says, okay, look, it's better to buy tickets at these local stores instead of purchasing them online. I mean, that's a different outcome to what Llama provided, which said, okay, this is offer in Expedia. You have an end-to-end experience offer, including a car rental. So you see the outcomes, they really vary. And but then you have the question is, can airlines compete against these guys? I'm not too sure.
I'd love to know. Well, can they compete? I think I saw another OpenAI announcement where they have linked up with Shopify and Etsy with the payments directly. So you can go into ChatGPT, search for a unique artisan bowl for my centerpiece in my living space, whatever, and it will search on Etsy, and you can tap through to purchase all without leaving the ChatGPT chat flow. And they say, well, why is that important? They say, well, actually, it's very important because if you search for a flight or you start talking about a holiday, you're within the walled garden of ChatGPT, and it's controlling. So which OTA, which innovative company, which airline it is going to appear as that card in the conversation flow that you then click the button, make that purchase. I think that's actually really exciting, and to see who's going to get there first.
So how is it determined whether who's going to get there first? And another issue is what Abhishek, I think what you mentioned is, okay, so you have all these different large language models and they all give different outputs, and that actually means that, and what that indicates to me is that, okay, so they're all that's also something basically that I understood from your explanation. They're all specialized on certain areas. But that wouldn't that mean, that's a good question, wouldn't that mean that, okay, if I want to book a flight, I will not use Llama or I will not use Perplexity, but I will use whatever it is that is just the best tool, apparently, in terms of, I guess it's the training, right? I mean, it's the training, the how the large language models are developed, trained, and that is sort of providing the basis for the quality of the service that they can offer later on, or the quality of the output that they can produce later on.
I think it's to do with the demographics using these models as well. I mean, why is Perplexity focused on flexibility?
Yeah, I don't know.
Exactly. And the thing is, of course, you can have Perplexity focused on specific brand offers based on prompts. But when you look at a normal citizen, I mean, when they put a prompt there, it's just a basic prompt. So the question is, of course, I think there was an interesting research done by Harvard Business Review also across different domains around healthcare, travel, fintech, on the use of these models and different prompts and how they generate based on personalization, localization. So yeah, it is an interesting area. To be honest, I don't know what the answer is, but yeah, it's something that we do see our customer segments looking into it to see, okay, how do they optimize? Well, which space do they enter where they can play a role? Areas where they can probably lead. I mean, that's still, I think it's wait and watch, basically.
There was another thing that Alex said, which I thought was worthwhile digging in a little deeper. And this is what you said is, I'm still waiting for one of those chats to give me a good, propose some, good extra service or something that I really like. Now, I was wondering then, of course, what I was thinking about, is this, are you special or are you representative for the broader population?
Oh,
so how would they, in general, how would people think about that?
I don't know. I think it's with consumer apps are extremely hard, and it'd be interesting to see the revealed behavior from businesses airlines trying different techniques for upselling and profiling their customers. I know it's an ongoing challenge to know when somebody is searching for a flight, are they a member of my loyalty scheme already? So I know that is a challenge. If you do know who they are, then you have a profile, you have data, you can make targeted offers. If you don't know who they are, then it's obviously much harder to pick the right thing to put in front of those eyeballs. So I think but AI does give you the opportunity to do that more productively and better than before.
So I think I would personally also actually like it, because I always like to get good suggestions, and I'm with privacy, I'm sort of, I'm relatively transparent, but I think there are also some limits to this. Abhishek, I was interrupting you.
You're right. I mean, no, I was just going to talk about this. So what Alex mentioned was what they call as hyper-personalization, right? Exactly like Alex mentioned, how airlines would like to analyze data based on their loyalty data, their booking history, their digital behavior to create tailored offers. So now, if you're a business traveler, if they identify you as a business traveler, okay, based on your personalized and booking history, to these locations, you've always booked a car rental. Okay, fine. So they'll give you better offers. Or a recommendation saying that, okay, if you're not already part of the flow, I'm going to recommend a car rental as an option. So this is where I think the world is going. I think we're moving away from, I'm not too sure if you've heard about the transformation around retailing or travel retailing that's happening. We're going to get rid of something called PNRs, the passenger name record, which has been there for almost 35 years. I don't know.
Yeah, long time.
So we're moving to the modern day retailing, which is similar to an Amazon experience, where when you order stuff in Amazon, you have one order ID associated to your orders. So when you travel,
can you just again say what's the difference? I'm not 100% sure I fully captured it. So the PNR versus Amazon.
Yeah. So for instance, when you book a ticket, you get a passenger name record or a PNR number, or it's a 5-digit code, 6-digit code, and then that is very unique to your flight ticket. Now, then you book a hotel reservation, you have a different reservation number. You book a car rental, you have a third reservation number. So that's. But in the Amazon world, when you're booking multiple items, you have one order ID associated with the item. And it makes it very flexible to cancel orders. And the order ID is retained. And today it is difficult when you book an entire experience. If you want to cancel a car rental, at times it's difficult you might have to cancel the entire booking, for instance. So today, like where we are going tomorrow is the new retailing world is of the order and the offer world, where you start with an inspiration. So you start inspiring the consumer to look for locations. So you provide a large extent of offers through hyper-personalization. And then once they like the offer, their offer gets converted into an order. And that order can be anything from a flight ticket. You can have one single order where you have your flight ticket, your hotel reservation, an experience, let's say a Disney, to a car rental booking, to possibly even a cinema ticket at Changi when you're having a layover. So all of that can be rebooked within the same order ID. So that's where we are going tomorrow. And I think hyper-personalization and AI would play an important role for monetization, to get the suppliers in.
And how does the user benefit from this? Because they have this one order ID for them. If they want to change their order, then it would make it easier for them. And so this is how they would basically benefit from this.
Even they get tailored offers, for instance. I think that's because they even hold a lot of information about your purchasing patterns and your preferences. Of course, privacy is one thing, but then overall, if you're let's say a student traveling, for you, I think it has to be cost effective, right? And if you get those kind of tailored offers, I mean, you're targeting a demographic with enough information compared to a business traveler who's an entirely different profile. And I think that's the benefit that we get in a wider ecosystem, an end-to-end travel ecosystem, where now it's this constraint to the loyalty customers. As Alex said, if I'm a club member, then I only have enough information about the member. But here you're extending, you're sharing data across the hotel ecosystems as well, car and the suppliers in the space.
Do you see that there is so what I was thinking about, because my background is economics, so I think about in terms of competition. So let's say there is one platform that is doing what you just described, and the users don't like it, and there is another one that does something that they like, then they can just switch, right? So let's say when they are concerned about privacy and they don't think that the offers are so good, but then there is another one, there is competition, and then they can just switch to the other one where they think, oh, that's kind of more, I feel safer there, and also the offers are better. But my issue is the best provider a provider that is very big? So what we can see, for instance, like Google, will there be a giant emerging from this that will just be dominating all others? That would be a question, but I just wanted to make sure that Alex, did you have any thoughts that I kind of stopped that you wanted to say? Is there something that you wanted to add to the previous discussion before I started with this, or?
No,
okay.
All good.
All right, good. So what do you think? Will there be one of those, travel giants? How competitive will that market be? Do you have any clue on this? Or will it be like, okay, so we really have big is beautiful, and everybody would want the big one because they just make the best offers, and there is no question about that.
I mean, if you look at this, there was this interesting recent conference where one of the airlines, they were pitching about the passenger services suite that they built in-house. And the question, I think the tagline was simple. Google, they've been trying to build a passenger servicing suite for so many years. Why was this particular airline successful? So, I don't want to take the airline's name here, but what I'm saying is that I think it's also to do with, from personalization standpoint, yes, they do have a lot of data, but I think it's also the domain expertise that they lack to achieve that feat. So, of course, Google, they will be present in certain, let's say, flows around around retailing. Of course, they're going to play a part there, but end to end is something that I don't see that happening.
All right, so I would say that's not bad news. I would say we will have more diversity, and people are specialized. They have certain skills, and then they will be able to keep their position, so to say, and stay alive in a sense. Interesting.
Well, it could be interesting if that booking flow happens, like we were talking about earlier, in a ChatGPT or a Gemini or a Claude chat flow. What's happened there is those three companies have taken, it's only one transaction that goes to the airline, book a ticket, and then the user is then back out into the chat flow where they are then made a subsequent offer. That breaks the link, doesn't it? And you think, okay, how will ChatGPT know that my loyalty card, my loyalty number? There's lots of there's a devil in the detail there about how that could work.
I think what would happen is, I think we'll see a lot of partnerships happening. So you might have maybe the big players like Expedia partnering with Perplexity or other providers in the space. But I think we do see that happening. We see that in other areas in fintech, for instance. So yeah, we do. I mean, that I do
Fintech
see
would
a
be
market.
something that comes to my mind with fintech is like you have a health insurance and then you have your tracker and then you Fitbit or whatever or the Apple Watch or whatever you use, and then they have this kind of collaboration so that they can basically check, oh, how healthy are you, and then make you a special. Is this what you had in mind, or am I kind of misguided?
No, I mean, you could see possibly, Expedia, let's say, partnering with one of these very famous providers around booking, so they could have an app ecosystem within many of these providers in GPT or in Perplexity, for example. So they would have tailored offers, probably prioritized based on the partnership. So they could have this partnership model or ecosystem developed over a period of time. It'd be interesting to see how the space evolves, though. It's something that we have seen that happen with a few other sectors. So, yeah.
Interesting. I have one other topic that I would like to, if your time still allows, because I think, was it Alex or Abhishek, or both, I guess, we're talking about decisions, right? Decision making. And then, Abhishek, what you brought up is the example of an airport and the resource utilization. And then what came to my mind is the labor shortages, right? I think this is one of the issues with airports that, at least to my understanding, that they often say, well, yeah, I mean, we really struggle finding stuff. And now if you can if you have more, artificial intelligence making decisions, that could improve resource utilization, but also kind of substitute some stuff. So that could be something that could help deal with labor shortages, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, automation would be one of the key players, I think, in both in operations mainly. We see that. I mean, we already see these asks from a lot of airports and airlines where they would want um, their they would want their agents to focus on improving ancillaries, for instance. And they would want their agents to become salespeople instead in the next few years. We probably would even get rid of. We want to get rid of check-in. We won't have the check-in process in a few years. In this, when I spoke about the travel retailing transformation, check-in will not exist basically. So you would have agents who would be focused solely on upsells and providing better ancillary services. And in terms of automation, yes, I mean, you would see, for instance, if you were to, let's say, you go through pre-security touch points, you would have enough intelligence where, let's say, you just have 1 hour or less than 1 hour to board. At pre-security, when you scan your pass or you get a notification saying that you want a fast-track pass because you just have 1 hour away. 1 hour to go, or if you're much earlier, if you reach the airport quite early, then you can get a launch voucher at discount. So being able to assess your timestamp and your flight details and that level of automation is something that we see happening and evolving over a period of time. So yeah, I think we would see a lot of transition there, and of course on the air side as well, we'll see a lot of automation around operations. On the non-mission critical and safety areas, I think that's for sure.